community. And so I thought, after talking with you guys, I thought maybe balance was kind of like what came out of it and how to get into a work-life balance mode. And I'll tell you why, because I have been working with computers for a long time. I think we all have. It's part of our culture, but we've seen a lot of change. And the first language I ever learned was something called BASIC or QBasic. I don't know if anyone still remembers that. But nowadays, all the languages that have kind of exploded have really caused this kind of maelstrom of what is it that we're keeping track of as we go. But what has also kind of inspired me in life is traveling, and a backpack through Southeast Asia, through Europe, parts of Latin America. I just love traveling and meeting people. And carrying a laptop with me was something that was kind of core to my being, which I think I noticed not a lot of people used to have or have the opportunity to do. But something else about it was I always enjoyed having a book, having something to write and think about my journey and reflect. And then, of course, something I could program on and stay in my shy mode. So this is me in Thailand in my early 20s. Asking someone to take a photo of me is I should be enjoying everything, and instead I'm programming on a contract for a website. But where I eventually went with that in my career was to go to a digital agency and then another digital agency. And that I was working with this digital agency, and I took on a product and to help out a startup. And my brother said, let's start a business around this. So in 2009, we did. And we started with just the two of us in a kitchen table. And much like traveling, things start to grow over time and you make more friends. So we grew it to almost 120, 118 team members, full-time contracted. Everybody was, core, and we would meet regularly. And I also grew it as a business. So it wasn't just a community, but I was also a, revenue and, accounting and operations and numbers of projects we were keeping track of and current work streams that were going on. So as it got bigger and bigger, you started to create different types of communities to the point where I would walk by, not even, be able to join some of those events and realize that my work-life balance was getting overbalanced. The things that I'd love to do were starting to slip away to a certain extent. And that's okay as things grow. But around 2018, there was a bit of a shift in the world in 19. And what we did was we calibrated it down to 7 core team members. And everyone is still friends and family and part of our community, give or take, right? But we got it to a threshold that made sense. But I learned a couple of things along the way that helped me juggle all the responsibilities as I was just a programmer working on projects to a CEO of a, multi-million-dollar business, right? And I'm much more of a hands-on person. The guy in the photo on the third one is Danny Sadi's our first employee intern, became our director of mobile engineering, is with us for 13 years. And Danny and I got to see less and less of each other as we grew up. And we now have come back to that. But there's also things that happen in your life, right? I I got married. I bought a house with my then wife. I had a son. All these life events are coming in. I got divorced after several years. And then we both did the work, right? As you're managing a business that's growing and thriving. And I learned myself things that I never really spent time on. I learned how to cook better, cook more. My Instagram is mostly cooking. I learned how to enjoy taking a bike ride and getting out and being by myself. And then we moved recently. So always moving is a thing in my life. And it's just the way I tilt. And I moved with my co-parent now. That's who we are to each other, co-parent, friend, and family. And then we restructured that agency down to a size that made sense. So we have a virtual team of 60 and it can scale up and down. I also got a cat. So I was able to maintain that lifestyle of being able to take care of someone else as well as I'm taking care of myself. So where are we today, right? So I'm CEO and CTO. My name's Dom. It's nice to meet you guys. I run an agency, 15 years, over 1,000 projects under the belt. I raise a 7-year-old. I'm a solo dad. we're 50-50. I travel all the time. I've been to Italy. I've been to recently this year, Italy, LA, Europe again. I mean, it's been fun to do all that, but I never stop moving. I also love to drink and Amaro specifically, and make Amaro, pickleball, biking, and yoga. So I'm going to teach you some stuff, or at least share some things that I've done that have helped me balance this stuff out. And really the foundation of it is two people in my life that I've like met with in philosophy specifically. First one is Marcus Aurelius, who is an emperor. You probably heard of him in the talkings of Stoicism, meditations. And the second is Lao Tzu, who wrote the Tao Te Ching. And they're both awesome. And our core ethos in our company, my philosophy that I want to share is do good, be good. But I'm going to share some of philosophies that hopefully if one or two of these are something you can take away with, or you ever want to chat about being balanced with all the things that go on in your life in this busy world, always open to chat. So a little bit about Marcus Aurelius. He was a general. He's an emperor of Rome. He's one of the last 5 great emperors. He had 13 kids. He lost 8 of them. He had 5, and he only had 1 son left that he passed on the empire to. He said wanted to be the worst emperors. Couldn't handle the things he did. He was raised by his grandfather, never really knew his dad. And he had to deal with plagues, barbarians, court intrigue. And he did it very mindfully as a student. And he wrote this private journal that he never, apocryphally, he never made it sound like he was going to publish it. It was just his private notes. And it was based off the writings of a slave named Epictetus. And Epictetus was based off the founder of Stoicism. So Stoicism is about resilience and virtue in the face of like certain aspects of your life that you can control, like your thoughts and how you reflect on things, specifically your feelings. If you've ever heard of cognitive behavioral, that's a type of therapy, CBT, that is basically rooted in Stoicism in the 1970s. And I recommend this version. There's several versions, but this one has the most kind of today's language of it. And a lot of the other versions I've seen or read through, they're much more like flowery. This version series in the Philosophy Classic series is great. So who's Lao Tzu, right? How does West, and he was a Western emperor, how does Eastern emperor? Lao Tzu is fascinating, right? No one really knows too much. He was a scribe, they say, at court. He might have been an astronomer. He studied the stars, or he might have just been a hermit. And he was an unknown person who became a cornerstone of Eastern philosophy, which is the Tao Te Ching. And again, I recommend, if you get a chance, any Tao Te Ching book you get, you can read it in maybe 3 hours, maybe 2 hours. It is thin. It is great. It is based on 2 volumes. But what we're going to talk about today, based on that, is foundationally in I'm speaking, so that means I do not know, based on Lao Tzu. And if anyone who knows things probably isn't necessarily needing to speak them. What does that mean? There's contrarianism, there's balance to it, but ultimately it's about finding that flow in your work and in your life and balance in that chaos. And that's what I call Tancredo, because my last name is Tancredi. So my brothers and I jokingly call our personal kung fu, as we all work together. My brothers and I are all in the same company, our Tancredo. So I'll share that with you. And here's some work techniques that I have. First off, with the philosophy of balance, you got to understand what Taoism is. And to understand Taoism already is to say, don't understand it. Your children are doing Taoism. It's a middle way. It's an expression of Wu Wei. So the art of not doing something is doing something. And you'll see examples of that. But you embrace change, embrace the rhythms of the world. And it's very like understanding nature and then letting it go, letting everything go. Stoicism, though, is very much about walking a virtuous path and trying to maintain your composure in what you're doing, in what you're dealing with, and also letting things go. So you accept you can control other people's actions. You accept that you are feeling certain emotions, but what you can control is your thinking and your behavior and your words behind them. And so some of these quotes that really kind of ring true to me is from Lao Tzu, and again, is to like do the work and then let it go. Write the email and you're done. Have the presentation and then you're done. Letting things go allows them to reverberate versus holding on to everything that you have. And I think in technology, I've noticed we've done that in the last decade where we've persisted everything in data. We've had to track everything. Um, our steps are being tracked. And that's important, right? For like artificial intelligence, we want to track every drive, but we don't count the number of breaths we take every day. And I think Lao Tzu would go, I'm a fan of like Snapchats and YouTubes and things that are ephemeral. You send a message and then you let it go. Marcus Aurelius is much more about like mindfulness with stoicism and realizing that you can't control anything outside of what's within your domain, but you do have control over your thoughts. So how you look at something actually can change how you behave towards it. And there's an inner strength in changing your perception of something going on. Recently, someone was rude to me. And I never notice when people are rude, but this person was rude. And instinctively I went, oh, they're having a bad day. Like hurt people is a nice phrase. It could affect your day or not, but that's a very stoicism kind of like inaction. It's always nice to have a little story in these before we get super deep. This is a Vinegar Tasters. It's an old painting, and there's just to give you like a grounding in a problem or a different way to look at it, the reality. These three Eastern philosophers. One is Confucius. He's tasting vinegar and he's going, oh, we've got to fix this. Confucianism is all about family and work and how do we solve a problem and get it going. It's the foundation of Eastern philosophy. Then you have Buddhism, another core pillar. He goes, look, life is suffering. Vinegar tastes bad. I wish it were wine, but it's not. Accept it. And Lao Tzu goes, I can't believe I have taste buds. I can't believe I'm tasting this. This is exciting. This is new. It's different. Am I in a painting? Am I in a presentation right now? How wonderful that life is like this. And that's like how I love like Lao Tzu. He recognizes even his own surreality of, of it all. And he expresses joy in that. And then he says, I don't even need to feel joy. I just do it and I move on. First thing I do, getting into techniques now, is start every day as a blank page. I don't know if you guys do this, but whatever your task list is, whatever's on the plate, I start with a blank piece of paper and I do what's called a bullet journal. You guys have probably heard of this. There are deeper techniques you can get to, and there are anything on Amazon you can find and purchase it. What I love about it in a Taoist way is it's very much a two-part task. You write a backlog and you write a task list. You can do it on a piece of paper. You can do it on a napkin at a bar. It doesn't matter. You could do it at the airport. And all you have to do is write down your backlog and then make a task list. And I ceremoniously do always the first one is make a list. And I love checking things off my list. And you either check it off, you send it to the next list, or you say, I'm not doing that. And those are the three things. Sometimes you circle them. There's deeper bullet techniques. And this is just a picture from one of my bullet lists. This is what, in April. I have a notebook and then I throw the notebook away because that was in the past. And it's just, oh, here's my backlog, here's my tasks, here's my backlog, and here's my test. And that ping pong back and forth or pickleball is so powerful to me because it allows me to start every day fresh, think about how happy I am to be here, to do the things I do, to feel good at being good, and then to just go, oh, and I'm okay with like getting rid of it. Like one day I just make last and I did my make list, did my emails. That's all I was able to get done. And making this presentation was on that list, and then it was done. But what about the tasks, right? Okay, so task management systems, right? I like to do Pomodoro. Maybe it's from my Italian heritage. But Pomodoro technique is also something you can do on your own. And choose a task, any task, and you give yourself a timer. You have to have a timer though, something external to you. And then you do it, and then you get a break, right? And then you take a long break. You reward yourself. And this behavior has driven a cycle of velocity of output for me as a manager, as an executive, that when you're programming, you need to get into a flow. If you're working on one domain, sometimes you're taking an half an hour, an hour. For me, I can configure this to be 10 minutes. 10 minutes is my magic number. And I will, if I'm in a flow, I'll do a 20 or a 30. But what I like to use is a Chrome browser extension. There's several of these. You can get them on your phone, and I configure it for a nice 10, 310. And I get that after, I believe, like every fourth rig is how I configure it. It's right up there. I see what's going on. I see how much time I have to get this 1, 2, 3 thing done. And I rarely care about my history because that's not very Taoist in my mind. And I'm not like, it aligns with me not to care about my history. But I have noticed over time my daily productivity or my weekly productivity. And this is a snapshot of like how many times I've Pomodoroed. Um, and I think like bringing that back to philosophy, I don't think like they say, Thich Nhat Hanh once said like anxiety is too much future and depression is too much past. So you can celebrate both and be excited about both. But if you're okay with like being in the now in the moment, finding techniques that work on that allow you to be a sharp, sharp player in the game. People ask me like, how many hours do you work? And that's a good question. Like, don't just immediately go, well, I'm paid for a week's work, right? But the way I'm starting to think of it now, as we're in a remote world, is like a baseball player, right? Like you warm up, you practice, and then you don't really swing the bat until you're there. And when you're there, you're in a Zen state. And that state, that's when you hit the ball. And that's when you throw the pitch. And so that moment is the culmination of all the preparation, the work. But you might be working 1 minute, 30 minutes, an hour, but you're not working a full 8. So I think like what is work at that point and when you're on your game to me is where I see like techniques like this help me get the minor tasks done so that I can be in the now for the major ones. We all have emails, we all have inbox, we all have things. So I like to do zero inbox. I like to, again, empty the page, empty the bucket. Learn key commands. If you don't know your key commands, shift for whatever you're using. Shift and question mark is great. Leverage AI. It's okay to draft it. Try to get it in your voice, but don't just fire and forget. Like actually, I say draft as AI, edit as human. I think that's a collaboration technique because there's so much nuance in language that I think it's powerful to like bring to the table that you might say the same words a million times, like the exact same word. And this allows you to start bringing in other vocabulary that you might not be exposed to. I love using like a little bit of a power up in tools. So a lot of people, we use the Google Workspace. I like using Superhuman. It's an augmentation on top of it. And what it does is it has a bit of a cleaner UI. It has a bit of some extra kind of bells and whistles that Gmail doesn't. I mean, it does have those key commands. It does have like AI and things like that. But I find it to be useful. If you can find a power tool in your world, specifically with Inbox, I do find it to be like, it's not just an efficiency engine, it's an effectiveness to it. You're actually nicely in the zone. I find like these key commands and the way they kind of change the presentation layer much more um, kind of tuned if you're going to live in that world. Also, like to get to zero, it doesn't mean you have to respond to everything. I used to avoid reminding things because I felt like everything had to stay there, so I was aware of it. You don't need to be aware of everything at every moment. I'm going to answer this email next Monday. That's when is a proper amount of time to let something breathe. And I think I learned that with cooking. So setting reminders, pushing things down, it feels good almost every day I can get to an inbox zero. And that doesn't mean I'm always kicking cans down the road, though I am sometimes kicking an email. Oh, I'll get to that. Oh, I'll get to that. It's like, wait, this was a while ago and you've been kicking it several times. Like you need to like, that's breathed enough. It's getting cold. You don't want cold chili. Um, and I think about that empty space being where your power can reside. So this quote like really kind of spoke to me about that. And I think about that when I think about cups every time I see a cup or every time I see a room. We find our usefulness not in the fullness of things, but also in the emptiness of them. Hey, not just inbox. Let's go zero tabs, right? How many tabs do we have in our browser? All of them open, all of them to be read. Set up a Pomodoro, tabs. Set up a Pomodoro, emails, Slack later, Slack reminders, like anything that becomes your list. It's time to empty the well. I do that too with apps. So when you see a cup, right, the strength of it is a great quote, is is its emptiness, right? That's where the true usefulness lies. If a cup were full, it wouldn't be useful. Like if it was full of clay. But if you mold that vessel, that is where you find like true value in a structure. So try to end your day, if you can, with all the apps closed, including your browser. Yes, you can remember the tabs. Set your Pomodoro task to read, review, and close every tab that you have maybe in a browser. See what it feels like to have an empty space, to have an empty desktop. Close a laptop and walk away from it. And I turn on Do Not Disturb quite more frequently than I used to. I would say almost daily now. I DND it. And I find that there's a value in not being accessible to people all the time and in real time mode. Even your friends and family, it's nice to like say you have you time, and then that's where like you are now empty. You are the vessel. Your emptiness in you have built a vessel around yourself. A bit of mindfulness at work that I just want to like all bring it back to. I use this Yoda gift is that what we really do in the tech domain, right? That's where I've spent my 20 years as a careerist in here and another 8 to 12 if you go back to high school, college, studying it, is that we lift with our minds. Um, and I say that because we have to shape and build architectures and systems that are very difficult and complicated. And we have to have cap theorems, and we have to have trade-offs and risks, and we have to work with a village of people. And I think that in doing all of those things, you have to know that your mind can sometimes get overwhelmed and strained, especially with the relationships that we have. So when lifting with your mind, I find that the ability to control that fortress in a Aurelian sense, well, he wouldn't like Aurelian, he would say Stoic sense, because he's not owning Stoicism, and the ability to empty it and to do no action is powerful as a technique. But we're not just balancing work, right? We're also going to balance our life. And so what are the mindfulness techniques I have in my life that maybe they'll be useful to you? And this is one of the funniest things I've shared with my son, and he has not yet appreciated it because he's 7. But this is what it feels like to be a dad sometimes, how you have all of these things that you're trying to do, and you shield it all away so that you can focus on the liquid in your vessel, another person that you're taking care of. And I think that the old Latin phrase that you'll hear in reference to Stoicism is memento mori, which means remember you will die. And knowing that, embracing that, means that every moment you have, you can choose to spend with those people or those experiences or those things that are good for you, important to you, necessary for you, because you're aware of the whole. So I think when we come to like these two guys, one left his entire empire to his son. And he said one really interesting thing, many, but one thing that struck me when I think about leaving this plane is that take your time. This is Marcus Aurelius. Take your time putting your children to bed if you have kids, or going to bed. Take your time, because you don't know. Like, take your time giving them a bath, brushing your teeth, having a chat, making dinner. Take your time. Don't rush it. You'll not be certain what tomorrow will be, if you'll ever see them again after when you go to work tomorrow. So this is the time to savor if you can, if you find that of value to you, even if it's with just yourself. So I take my time putting my son to bed. I really relish the moment that we have together. But Lao Tzu had no kids, right? And his story was different. This is apocryphal. He was talking about his work, not his work. He was talking about basically Taoism, but not really even owning it. He was just talking about Confucianism. And so Confucius himself, this ancient philosopher, came and said, who is this guy who is causing a ruckus with my philosophy? And he goes and he meets Lao Tzu. And Lao Tzu's like, yeah, I don't agree. I think you should just let it go and, give it up. And let me show you this vessel and try to explain myself. Confucian did not like that. So the next day, Lao Tzu leaves. He leaves the city. He's out. And this is a apocryphal story. He gets to the border and there's a guard there, Yinzi. And Yinzi's like, oh my God, Lao Tzu is amazing. And Lao Tzu, he's on a water buffalo. He's like, I'm out. I'm leaving. And Yinzi's like, you can't leave without writing down everything that you've been saying. He never wrote anything down. And Lao Tzu was like, oh my God, fine. And he writes the whole Tao Te Ching, 2 volumes, in one night, and he gives it to Yinzi and he leaves. Like Jesus had 12 disciples and and several books. Like it's amazing. And Aurelius had whole histories about him. Lao Tzu was like, I'll write it once, give it to you, Yinzi, and I'm out of here. You could burn it. It means whatever it means. And Yinzi was like, what a guy. And he leaves. And I think there's something powerful about that, like knowing you're leaving and caring or not caring about the things you leave and how much of an impact it could have to anyone centuries later. That's Lao Tzu. Let's talk about your physical well-being, right? I'm trying to stay in a good flow here. So we're talking about life. I think everybody should have your strength and your endurance, your muscle and your cardio. You should know your coping mechanisms. What is it you use to cope with stress? You could say, well, I'll reduce my stress, but we live with our minds. There's going to be stress. And then be mindful in all of them. Socrates has a great quote, and I'll boil it down. You should just enjoy the fullness of your body. Run as fast as you can out of breath. Pick something up that's heavy. Play a game to exhaustion. Do a pull-up or a push-up. Feel the limits. And if you don't get a chance to feel those limits, what a waste. Go for it. So my strength, I do yoga every morning. There's a lovely YouTube channel, Yoga with Cassandra. She's my yogi. I started 5 minutes a day. I bought a mat on Amazon. 5 minutes in the morning, great. I got to 10 minutes in the morning, great. Here's how I do it. I wake up, I lay the mat out. I commit 100% to whatever time I have. I've been doing 25 minutes. Some days today, I had 14 minutes. 14 minutes of yoga, great. I'm 100% there. I don't think about tomorrow. I don't think about yesterday. I just focus on it. And I give it everything because I have a sneaky suspicion the gods are watching. I think the goddesses are watching. And if you're there 100%, your whole body is there, then you will get something back for that. It will all come back to you. And then at the end, like a ceremony, I clean it up. I wipe it down. And I learned this in depth. It really struck me when I went on this adult summer camp this summer called Camp No Counselors. And I was able to touch nature and be away from everything and everyone. I highly recommend getting to nature and doing those things. But this is something that you can do as a strength. You can commit 10 to 20 minutes on your own, buy a mat, get it done. Also, since moving here, I've been getting into pickleball, right? So I think that's a more communal aspect. And you just have to, like Pomodoro, I'm going to do 3 matches. I'm going to do 30 minutes or 3 sets, and I'm going to give it my all. And what I've been doing is biking every day since I separated from my wife and got divorced. I was like, I've got a bike. I'm going to bike 45 minutes a day, 3 sets a day. And I've just been biking everywhere. And then I stopped keeping track, like very Taoist, I didn't keep track. I just bike every day. I didn't have a car for 6 years. But when we moved to Lancaster, I couldn't bike every day because bike's in the storage or it didn't fit my flow. So I had to find a new flow. So I got a pickleball racket and I joined these pickleballers. And I said, I'm here, 3 sets. And I just get my face smashed in by septuagenarians every day. But I'm getting better every single day. And I'm having more fun every day. But I give it my all. It's the same flow. Cardio and strength, right? You commit to it, you give it everything, and then you clean it up at the end. You take the shower. My friend Jeff, I'm really inspired by him. He's the guy in the center. He had, this is a story. He had gained up from 180 pounds to 300 pounds. And he's done it 3 times in his life and he's crash dieted down. He's never been able to keep it off. And Jeff isn't his real name, by the way. I'm just using that. He was able to keep it off because he walks every day. His cardio is walking every day, and he burns through Allbirds shoes. He got a bunch of them. And he's like, I walk, he's a lawyer. I take my meetings while I walk. I have these AirPods and I've got my rhythm. I'm in the zone. And then I rinse off. And so for our birthdays, me and my brother's birthday, he planned a 22-mile bike ride for us to go through 7 breweries and restaurants and this whole thing. And it was great. And we had the cardio, we had the fitness. We're in our 40s and we're able to do this. So it doesn't matter what age you are, in my opinion, find your strength, find your cardio. It will mean something to you. Coping mechanisms, what I like to call your vices, we all have them, right? It comes because of the work. It comes because of our life and our relationships. It comes because of the stress. We need to just do, I recommend a checklist, a mental review of our coping mechanisms, get a grip on them, whatever they are. And I like to delay any coping. Oh, I want to watch YouTube. Oh, I want to read my webcomics. Do it in the evening. Try to delay it till the end of the day for you. Try to find the ones that are bad, if you have multiple ones, and replace them with the good. If it's drinking coffee, try tea. I did that for Lent, 40 days, no coffee. I said, I'll give that up. Or 40 days, no alcohol. I'll give that up. Just 40 days. Maybe I don't have a problem. Maybe I did. Give it up 40 days if you can. And start to replace it with good things. You have to substitute it because the stress is still there. And you can get what I call addition through subtraction, because now you're adding a bit of self-resilience and virtue in your workflow. And I love this meditations. I would probably, if I had a tattoo, this would be my tattoo. And it's great because Marcus Aurelius did this in the first chapter. He said, let it be said of him that was said of Socrates, right? He's giving Socrates a compliment that he was able to both abstain from and imbibe or enjoy those things which many cannot abstain from or cannot enjoy without excess. And I think about that. I think about people who say there's no such thing as perfect. And that's not true in my mind. I don't believe in that. True or not, I don't believe it. I think people push past perfection. You can hold a handstand and then you could fall over, and that's okay. But you can hold that handstand, and that's a perfect handstand. Like a breath can be perfect. A word you say to someone, perfect. So recognize those moments of perfection. Recognize that you don't need that fifth donut will not taste sweeter than the first one. That fifth bite won't be, maybe that won't be as good as the first bite. And do a little coping mechanism checklist and see, my recommendation, see which ones you can trade, see which ones you can defer, delay, and see which ones you do have a good grip on. And you go, great, I get my coffee in the afternoon. Nailed it. Something that helped me while I was going through my experience and getting to balance. So now I'm balancing this is nutrition. What am I eating? How often am I eating? When am I eating? And do I have vitamins? Because I'm in my 40s. In the Whole Foods, they've got vitamins and they've got vitamins for men over 40. And I was like, oh, I'm 42 now. This is my vitamins. And doing research. What I recommend is for me, but I think for others, especially people in the tech space, is because we have a bit of that baseball flow, is watch a cooking lesson. Ramsey and 10 is great. Buy a cookbook and cook yourself breakfast. Just make breakfast, make it every day, and then start making lunch. Make it any lunch you want. What I do, because I'm a very orderly person, is I start on the first page and I cook that recipe. I go shopping for it, and then I cook the next recipe and the next one, the next one, next one. I have so many leftovers that it's like, oh, I'll get to that. When it's like, oh, I'm going to cook again, I just go and go, what haven't I cooked? And instead of randomly going around, I'm like, I'm in the beef stage of cooking. So I'm working on a steak sandwich. Why is it important? How often is it important? Because you have to eat 3 times a day. You have to. You don't have a choice. You're going to eat. Okay, if you're going to eat, be mindful of it. Do it. Try to cook once a day. I think you could do 3. I like to cook 3 times. You'll notice when you cook, you might not have all the things you need, or the things you're using are kind of flimsy. Upgrade your tools, just like in development, just like in programming, just like in emails, upgrading the base to like superhuman. Look at the tools you're using and upgrade them, right? It's worth it. A third of all good meals are just getting quality ingredients. I love taking my son to Whole Foods, running around saying, get anything you want. Just pick whatever you like and we'll cook with it. I don't care. And that's already tasty. Once you get good ingredients, taste away. So I love spending too much money at exorbitant. I don't get like weird esoteric stuff. It's like, oh, I'll get organic bananas. Sure, why not? I don't know if organic makes it better than conventional. I'm told it might. I'll do it. Get the proper tools. Okay, you've got the banana, you got the right knife, and then practice your technique. And that's what all comes together. Cacio e pepe, it's three ingredients. It's butter, it's bucatini, and it is pepper, right? And you just put it together. Oh, and it's pecorino, sorry, four ingredients. It's fast stuff, but it also can come together very, very well. Do it for yourself, do it for your family, do it for your friends. Just start cooking. And my Instagram is just full of things I just started putting together and working through a recipe book. And so this is my son. He actually helped me with this slide because I ordered him a box of tropical fruit, things we never tasted in the world. I said, okay, now it's your turn to cut this. He put that charcuterie board together. He asked for a grade on it. I said it was a B. And he said, what am I missing? And I go, you need proteins. You got to get something in there. He goes, how about these cashews? Having nuts available is great. Just get bags of like different kinds of nuts, different kinds of fruits, different kinds of vegetables. And he's like, okay, how's it now? I was like, A plus, you nailed it. He made that jelly sandwich there. And I think you just start to build a relationship with food is healthy. We're almost done. But this is a curiosity is to maintain a sense of a flexible mindset. These are just pieces of all the books I've read that are philosophy driven. You'll see things like power, Peterson's rules, things like what we owe the future, Lynch stuff. You see also some technical things. I love talking about this stuff. So I love talking about philosophy and mindfulness. So what I just say is you don't have to read, but stay curious. People used to say, oh, he's intelligent. What an intelligent person. I'm sure you're very intelligent, very studied. But how powerful is it to say, man, you're very curious. You're a very curious person. I think that's a true compliment to be curious about someone else. To say, I'm just asking questions. I'm just curious about how you view something. It allows you to enable a freeness in your mind and to remind yourself, I'm cribbing a bit from Peterson, that people know something you don't. And that could be with a curious mindset that does not come from any sense of chicanery. You're not trying to convince them and you're not trying to manipulate them, but you're just trying to learn from them. That's powerful. And I think that's powerful and healthy. I also like to say iron sharpens iron. So it's good to have debate. It's good to discourse. I think that's how we get to a society that becomes so strong over time is that you allow a freedom of speech. That's why it's our First Amendment. And I think it does keep our minds and our values quite sharp just to have debate. And I also go back to like, what is it that what are the foundational pillars when it comes to this level of curiosity, when it comes to things that you're about or things that are about with others? Be honest. Be honest with yourself. Am I really reading this because I care, because I'm curious about something in this book? Am I respecting what I'm reading, or do I feel dismissive of it? Or is that because I'm debating with what I'm reading? And what are the results? What is it that I'm trying to achieve? What is it I'm trying to learn or uncover? That third one is always a little tricky for me because sometimes the result is, am I enjoying this? Um, and I think if you're mindful with that, you can find yourself in a space where you're curious about like artwork, you know? Or your hobbies, right? Do you create? Well, some people say, oh, I don't like to write because I don't want to make fun of my stuff. I get, in my own head, or I don't want to draw. I say go for it. If you want to create, create. Some people say, hey, you should sell that. Don't monetize your hobbies. If you want, do it. But me, I go, I just like to write. I just like to draw. I'm here to just be here and then now because it's not work. When I'm in the work, that's what I've monetized, my like career and passion. You don't have to persist anything either. You can just make something and let it go, give it to somebody. I wrote a haiku the other day because someone said they were nervous about writing. I'm like, what about a haiku that someone writes on I kind of framed it like, you just make a little paper airplane and throw it. And that's what's fun is you can encourage other people with your hobbies to share them with your kids, share them with your family, share them with your friends, share them with strangers. because that will be a nice, I hate to say validation, but it's a nice flywheel of like, I'm I'm juicing myself up in my enthusiasm over it. And I think allowing yourself to always be learning. So this is my son, and he's very curious about trains. And so I took him on a train ride. He was curious about turnstiles, and we would spend half an hour at a New Jersey turnstile, right? The path. And then we would spend it on the subway. And he would just want to go back and forth. I must have spent at least $50. And then I just said, you got to duck under. He did not want to duck under. He wanted to actually go through. I went through it, we did it. And now we've trained across the country and he's planning big train trips. We've done overnight train rides. And he reminds me about how powerful it is to let your curiosity kind of just keep flowing. He's curious about flying planes. So, so, so anything that's stopping you with your hobbies, your passions, the busy work in your way, sometimes it can help advance it. And I think talking about that stuff is what keeps you, going. Um, I know we're coming close on time, so I won't bore you with the story of like, if you can, the story of the king and the boulder. But he puts a boulder, old man gets it off. It's a really great story. But the old man and the boulder, if you're interested, chat with me and we'll have a chat. Four Agreements. This one I'm cribbing straight from the book, The Four Agreements. It's a great book. It's a very slim book. This one I keep in mind whenever I start to feel like a shadow of a doubt of like getting overbalanced. First thing is, am I doing my best? Doing my best. You're doing your best. Do your best. Don't take anything personally. You don't know what the other person's thinking you're doing. You don't know why they're coming at you. You don't know what that is, but don't take it personally. Sometimes it's just who they are, what's going on, or it's just nature. It's just human nature, outside nature. I don't take the rain falling on me personally. I change my perspective and try to enjoy it. Be accurate with your word. Notice when you say what you say, if it matches the integrity that you so firmly establish in your life. Try not to lie, avoid that. I'll tell you why. If you get good at lying to other people, or if you practice lying to other people, you might find yourself lying to yourself. And how scary is that? You can't even tell when you're telling, oh, I'm fine, everything's great. You don't even know anymore. And I think that's when your whole world could start to, you can't fix things that you'll never know are broken. So being accurate with your word with others is a great way to practice being accurate with yourself about how you're feeling and how you're doing and what you're up to. I won't trust assumptions. The Four Agreements actually says don't make assumptions. I think it's great to make assumptions. Assume everything. It keeps you like curious about stuff, but don't trust them, right? Oh, why hasn't he gotten back to me? I don't know. Maybe it's because, but it's like, I'm not going to trust anything I just came up with there. I know Marcus kind of echoes this. If it's not right, don't do it. It's not the right way, the right thing. Don't do it. You're going to undermine the future or undermine someone else's building the future. If it's not true, don't say it. It's going to, getting used to that rhythm could undermine you later. And then everyone else, everything else, we covered personal life and work. The last thing I want to say is about relationships. Everyone who's in front of you is real, 100%. The barista is more real to you than anybody that you're looking at on the phone, FaceTiming with. They're 75% real. This is a personal mindset. Everyone you hear, your own parent on the phone, is 50% real. And anyone online is about 25% real. So when you're in the now, even with a stranger at the TSA line, that's more real than what is on a blinky screen light. Spending time with the real is time well spent. If only because you are always there too. That means you are always 100%. And I think when it comes to the people that are important to you that you meet in that moment, always recognize, I think, who's ephemeral. You'll meet them once. I met them at camp. It was great. Some people at camp will go, oh, let's get each other's Instagrams and this will be great. Maybe that's not what will happen. You won't see this person ever again. That's okay. They're ephemeral, just like a story on TikTok or Snapchat. There's people in your age of your life that are with you while you're there. And those are great relationships to cultivate and develop. And then there's people in the stage of your life that you're in. And then there's people for your entire life. And if you can recognize where these people might be or not, if you don't know, then you can be okay with letting them go and also keeping them with you. And I'll leave that with you with Lao Tzu. Be patient with your friends and be patient with your enemies. Compassion to yourself, but also reconcile all things are going back to the dust. The last thing I want to say, just a couple of quick things, is make eye contact, try to have a smile, ask questions. Again, going back to curiosity. Don't wait in lines. You have to wait in line, have a chat with someone. I don't like to wait in a line. I love lines. Lines make buildings. Lines get us done. Lines keep us orderly. Love it. Being in the line, not so much a fan. But talking to people in a line, I love that. I get to practice my sense of humor. I get to build a relationship. I get to have a chat, even if they're a bunch of ephemeral. I'm ephemeral to them. And respect authority, even if you don't follow it. Have a respect for that. It was built up for a reason. If someone says, no, you can't go in there, or no, you can't do this. Okay, that's fine. I respect that. Aurelius, I should call him Marcus, but we're not on a first name basis. We're born to work together. To not work together, to create obstruction is unnatural. To feel angry at someone, to turn your back on them, it's not natural. And Stoicism is all about the naturalness of the world. Last thing, I promise, and we'll get to Q&A. These are my randoms. These would be like Jordan Peterson's rules. Don't talk to anyone after 11. I don't care who they are. Day's done. It's over. The Italians have an expression. They don't do coffee after a certain period of time. Yeah, the coffee machine's right there. You can get coffee any day of the week in America. In Italy, you don't get coffee. Much wise, don't talk to anybody. Talk to yourself. Know when to get into a situation. Know when to get out of one. Two different skill sets. Cultivate both. If you can't pronounce it, either learn or don't eat it. Mostly with things on the back of labels. Sodium bicarbonate, I can pronounce. But also, I'm not sure I want to eat it. Read the labels on things. Socially, it's okay to arrive late, and it's great to leave early, right? Everybody who's working there is busting their butt to make sure you have a great time at any event you go to. Don't be the ugliest guy at the bar. Don't be the last guy at the bar. And I'm usually both. So I always leave a bit early. Professionally, it's the opposite. Arrive early, arrive early. Arrive early, leave late. That's only if it's going well. Everyone gets 5. Any event, any conference, any line, any chat, everybody giving you 5 minutes and you give them 5 minutes. That doesn't mean you have to give them 10. But if you each give each other 3 to 5, that's great. Get off the clock. It's nice to be off the clock. We're just having a chat. We're all in business. We're all doing events and networking and doing all that's fun. It's okay to be off the clock. Talk about things you're curious about, your hobbies, your families. I like being off the clock. And leave room for dessert, always. That's dessert. So I want to say thank you to everyone. I know I've been talking. I see a bunch of chats have come in. I'll leave you with 2 little phrases, sayings, quotes, countless words that I've genuinely expressed, count less than the silent balance between. And also realize the universe is change. So our life is only our thoughts, what our thoughts make it. Okay, that's what I've got.